Hey everybody, this is Joseph Pasek, and welcome to the Fired Up Network. Welcome to the flagship show of the Fired Up Network, Fired Up Live, and welcome to my good friend, the broadcasting legend, Stormin' Norm Rumack. Norm, before we begin, we got some messages, and by the way, if you want some tickets, check out this, Norm.
You are watching the flagship show on the Fired Up Network. Let's all get fired up on Fired Up Live.
All right, Norm, are you fired up? You're on Fired Up Live. I want you fired up.
Oh yeah, I'm fired up. I'm fired up.
All right, you're fired up. Okay, so let's start. We're going to begin with the NCAA tournament. We're down to the Sweet 16. Norm, when you were 16 years old, did you have a Sweet 16?
No.
No. Do you want a Sweet 70?
No, I don't.
No, you don't. Thanks a lot for playing along, Norm. All right. All number one seeds made it through the Sweet 16, and Sweet 16 is back on Thursday here. We're down to the nitty gritty here. I know you watched some of the matchups and all that, but which team, now we're 16 teams left, which team has impressed you?
Well, I haven't had a chance to watch that many games, Joe, so I like to be brutally honest. I did see the UConn-Florida game yesterday. It was a classic matchup of back-to-back champions.
Yep.
Florida was back-to-back, in the middle part of the millennium. I think it was 07-08 or 06-07, the Florida Gators. And UConn more recent, of course. So it was a classic matchup. UConn actually led for part of the match, and they were the underdog because, if I'm not mistaken, they were the 8 seed. Florida's one of those 1 seeds forecast by some or many to get to the Final Four. So they've still got a shot, obviously. And as you mentioned, the number 1 seeds are still surviving. Duke looks formidable. I saw some of their match yesterday. They look very, very impressive. So we'll see what happens. That's what makes the tournament great, is it's pretty sometimes predictable and sometimes completely unpredictable. So we haven't seen a whole bunch of crashes of seeds yet, or bracket busters. Sometimes you see those quite often the first 2 days of the tournament between the seeds that are ranked anywhere between 4 and 13 or so. That's where a lot of those upsets happen. So we didn't see a whole lot of that stuff going on. And we saw some really good basketball. So like I say, I think I got to see the best match of the tournament so far in terms of the UConn-Florida game. So I picked the right game to watch. And it was a classic one, right down to the wire, basically. And a lot of heartbreak for UConn Husky fans who are used to titles and excellence. Not that they weren't excellent; they were. They put up it was, like I say, it was a great game. But you can only have one winner, and Florida prevailed. So it was exciting to watch, and classic game in terms of befitting of that title.
And of course, the three-peat is now over for UConn. So very good game there. And this weekend, we're down to the Sweet 16. So, it's going to be very, very tightly contested. And like we talked about, I guess, last week here on Fired Up Live, it looks like seeds 1, 2, 3, 4 made it through. And it looks like it may be predictable this year for the first time. And I don't remember, maybe 15, 20 years. And you said it, to your credit, you said it, that, I don't see these guys, the first or second seed, slipping up. If it's 1, 2, 3, 4, or maybe 1, 2, 3, how good is this tournament going to be in the last semifinal and quarterfinals?
Yeah, it could be one of the best ever. I think my original call last week was to see 3 of the top 4 seeds. Yeah. Didn't say which ones specifically, but I just said the field is good enough that 3 of those 4 that are, seated in the regions, number 1, we could see as many as 3. And who knows, maybe we'll see 4. It's a rarity, but I believe it has happened on 1 or 2 occasions. Not very often. I could be wrong on that, but I wouldn't be at all surprised if we saw 3 of those number 1 seeds survive to the Final Four, which would make the Final Four, the semifinal, and the final classic games. That's for sure.
All right, and certainly that's the men's side. The ladies' side have been having a great tournament as well. With NCAA March, April. That's why they call it March Madness. It's the best time of the year. The baseball starting, hockey and basketball gearing up for the playoffs. You have golf. You have everything. If you're a sports fan, got everything there. And can't forget, we're talking about basketball, but the CEBL, the Canadian Elite Basketball League, today, just minutes ago, announcing an outdoor game in Montreal, May 23rd, 8 p.m. in Montreal and Ottawa for the Canadian Elite Basketball League. It's going to be, great to see an outdoor basketball game here in Canada, the first of its kind, and hopefully May 23rd, because Norm, you know what happened yesterday? Yesterday here in Toronto, it was snowing, and I'm blaming Norm Rumack. He was saying, he's 15, 18 degrees here. We're not going to see that till May. Now it's snowing. Tomorrow could be raining. And who knows what's happening in this world? But, an outdoor basketball game, how excited are you, Norm?
Well, if I get time to watch it, I'll watch it on TV. So we'll see. Should be interesting. I don't know how that'll work. Outdoor basketball depends. What day is it being played?
On May 23rd. So we got to
check.
Be
nice and warm. Well, that's fine. There's a lot of kids who grow up playing basketball play outdoor basketball. You got warm weather. What's not to like?
Yeah, hopefully it's warm and not rainy. Playing.
Well, it's all right.
Yeah, basketball.
It'll make it more interesting if it's raining.
All right, and in a couple of minutes, we're going to be joined by the coach, Carmen Asako, who's going to talk about a great soccer weekend, especially, me and Norm are Canadian. I should bring John Nelson and the American Canada defeating the Americans in the third place match, 2-1. A lot of controversy with the referees and everything like that. And congratulations to Mexico. Yes, they beat Panama, and they scored in the 92nd minute a penalty shot goal, 2-1. So congratulations. They win the nation's final or cup for 2025. And there was a great soccer around the world. Powerhouse of Spain, my team, Norm, my team. Powerhouse of Spain, Portugal, and all that. We'll be talking with Carmen Asako about that also. And just a side note, in the MLS, Montreal has fired their coach. Montreal just minutes ago has fired their coach. I'm going to ask Carmen if his phone is ringing to be the new coach of Montreal, and if he's going to learn French. You know any French, Norm?
Just a few words.
Yeah, bad words. All right. Just bad words. All right. And don't forget, like I said, March, April, Thursday, and we'll be back here Thursday. Thursday is the start of Major League Baseball. The start of Major League Baseball. And Norm Rumack has gone on the line and said the Blue Jays are not going to finish last in the American League East, correct?
I haven't made a prediction, actually, Joe, but
I'm asking to put you on the spot right now.
Yeah, well, The Athletic predicted or analyzed in their preview of Major League Baseball, and that's an excellent publication, by the way. If you don't read it, check it out. It's quite good. I don't work for them. I'm just saying. It's an excellent publication. They had predicted the Blue Jays to be 18th amongst the Major League, 18th best amongst the Major League Baseball teams. So they have them basically behind the Red Sox, the Orioles, and the Yankees, in spite of the injuries that the Yankees and the Orioles have. So I think the Red Sox have a couple as well. So, I mean, injuries are part of the game. So it's not, it's not, it's a big deal. Like, obviously, if you're the Yankees and you lose the ace of your staff, which they have, that is a big deal. But I'm just saying there's so many games that you're going to have injuries during the course of the season. But even with those injury concerns, the Blue Jays, in terms of the Athletic anyways, with their Major League Baseball preview, are forecasted to be the 18th best team. I mean, we know the AL East is a tough division, and so we'll see how it works out. But they don't seem to be overly optimistic about the Toronto Blue Jays. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, well, let's see. And there's still question marks about Bo Bichette, about Vlad Guerrero, 500, 600, 900, for whatever $1 million. But again, Major League Baseball season starts Thursday. The Blue Jays open up here at the Rogers Center against the Baltimore Orioles, 3 p.m. 3 p.m. There's still some preseason matchups going on today and tomorrow, but the Blue Jays are all done. They're in Toronto, and they're going to have a meeting tomorrow and Wednesday before they start the season. Now, Norm, let's head it to National Hockey League or hockey in general. I gotta say this, with new mandates and new teams in the WHL, the Penticton Vs have been awarded a new WHL team. So they'll start in 25 and 26, 27. And there's going to be more clubs there. But in NHL, it looks like 32 teams is not enough. And it looks like in the next year, we're going to have 34. And from what you hear, maybe 36. Norm, I'm going to ask you this right now. How much is enough?
Well, I could see more franchises being added. I think they should definitely put one back into Quebec City. It's a great market, great rivalry with Montreal. See nothing wrong with that. I think the Dallas Stars have done so well that maybe you could add a team in Houston.
They are going to add a team in Houston. I got news for you.
Well, that's good because Houston is a major market. Like I say, hockey has done very, very well in Dallas. The Stars are a major force. You always see, a full house. At least I do when I'm watching them on TV. They've got an excellent chance. That is, to be a contender for the Stanley Cup this year. Got a very good squad. I don't know if they're the favorite, but they certainly should be one of the contenders. And I could see hockey expanding. I see nothing wrong with it. And like I say, especially you add teams like the likes of Houston. And the NHL has done well by going into so-called small markets. They were the first professional league to go into Las Vegas. Right now, everybody's there in Las Vegas, including the Oakland Athletics, or at least they're building their stadium. I don't know when it's finished.
In 2 years. 2 years.
2 years, yeah. So unfortunately, everyone's kind of left Oakland, but it's a tough market, right? We've seen that. So in any case, the NHL. The NHL went to San Jose before it was popular to go to San Jose or in that area of California. Now, with the new stadiums that are pretty close to that area in and around San Francisco, or within an hour of San Francisco. So that's a popular area for stadiums. And the San Jose Sharks have been an amazing success story, And like I say, the NHL, it was a bit of a gamble to go to Nashville. Nashville's got a great market. It's a great hockey team. It's well supported. So that was another smart move, going to a so-called smaller market. And I think that maybe they could take a gamble like the NBA did by going to Memphis. The Grizzlies moved out of Vancouver and down to Memphis. And I think the NHL, if you have a Memphis-Nashville rivalry, I think it'd be great. So, I some people say the game's watered down. It's not that watered down. I mean, look at how well Seattle has done. They're a recent, expansion club. And Utah Hockey Club is well supported after their move from Arizona.
And you mentioned Vegas. Vegas already won the Stanley Cup. They've been to 2 Stanley Cups. Your team, the Toronto Maple Leafs, 0 since 1967. Look at Vegas. And everybody, like you mentioned, is scared to go because gambling and all that. But if you do it right, nobody's talking about gambling in Vegas. They want to see wins. They want to see entertainment. And Vegas, I haven't seen a game there, but everybody who's been there said it's the game but it's entertainment. They got everything during the intermissions, and they have a good team and everything like that. And let's face it, going to watch hockey in Vegas when it's 110 degrees outside, come on.
Well,
Vegas,
Vegas is an excellent market because you got so many tourists there from all over. So, of course, it's a great place to have a team. And the whole concern about gambling is a hypocritical joke. I mean, what has more, what sport doesn't have gambling ads all over the place? I mean, throughout the NHL broadcasts, from top to bottom, the betting companies are featured, and all these betting companies are like rivaling each other. I see, in fact, I'd almost say I see, other than a few car ads, here and there, and some beer commercials, I see nothing but gambling advertisements on professional sports broadcasts. So, it seems every league, every team is brought to you by blah, 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 bet and fill in the blank, bet this number, that number, blah, 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 or the names of some famous casinos. I'm not blaming them. I don't gamble myself. I have no interest in it. I mean, I have an interest in it. It's like, gee, if I bet that game, maybe I would have won some money. But I live on I'm on a working class salary. I have a very tight budget, and I do what I got to do. And, some of these companies put on ads warning of gambling responsibly, but, I'm not criticizing it. It's legal to wager, so it's legal to wager. But there certainly are people who have problems with gambling addiction, and it can cause a lot of problems. So that shouldn't be swept under the carpet. And most of those companies do put up ads for if you have problems with gambling addiction, here's a number to call, which is the right thing to do. But you just wonder, if there's been an unfortunate number of gambling addiction problems. But listen, you can buy alcohol, and doesn't mean you do stupid things. Some people do, unfortunately. Or whether it's in places where it's legalized, smoking marijuana or whatever, it's legalized. It's legalized in Canada, but it means there's rules you have to follow, and there's common sense that you have to follow. So gambling can be viewed the same way. You can gamble, but make sure it's part of your discretionary dollars, and you don't go past what your discretionary dollars allow. So it's implying a sense of responsibility. So you can't control what people will do with their money. So it's perfectly legal. And like I say, I just hope that there haven't been a whole lot of problems with families, where people are spending money that they don't have or that they can't afford to. But yes, worrying about putting a team in Vegas because of gambling is ridiculous, because all professional sports now is wall to wall with gambling ads. It's like it's almost like nothing but, and I'm sure they're making a good buck off of it, and that's the way of the world when it comes to professional sports now. It's all about gambling, as gambling and casinos and online gambling as the biggest sponsors of professional sports almost everywhere now.
You want to know why Norm Rumack is a fan of the Toronto Maple Leafs? He just gave you it because on the Maple Leafs helmet and jersey, what do they have? Is milk. Milk is their advertisement. And you know what, Norm? Look at Norm. Milk does a body good. This is what Norm loves about the Maple Leafs. There's no gambling on their shirts, on their helmets. There is just milk.
Yeah, but there's gambling ads during their games.
No. But who cares about during the games? I'm talking on the shirt because everybody buys an Austin Matthews shirt, a Mitch Marner shirt, a Willie Nylander shirt, and their helmet. If you're going to wear a helmet, and Norm wears it every day, you have to have milk on it. This is why he loves the Toronto Maple Leafs, and this is why the Maple Leafs ticket prices have gone up 20%, because milk has gone up 20%.
Yeah, well, by the way, the Premier League will not have, after this season, there will no longer be front of shirt advertisements for gambling companies as major shirt sponsors. So that comes to an end after this season, because they have found that gambling did create a lot of social problems and family problems in England. Now, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but at some point, if you want, I can bring on a guest who can address that issue.
29.8%.
Pardon me?
29.8% they're attributing from if you're seeing ads on jerseys and all that, people go out and bet, and 29.8% up when they see it on, I'll just use your team, Chelsea jersey. Okay, well, it's fine to bet or whatever. And there's more people who are in trouble betting in Europe and specifically in football or soccer games than anywhere else in the world.
Yeah, well, by the way, Chelsea doesn't have a front of shirt sponsor, and so that means they don't have a gambling company. In fact, they could have had one, but they declined it a year ago. So they don't have a front of shirt sponsor to begin with, and they don't have one. They don't have any, as far as I know, that are gambling related in terms of their, the other stuff, their training wear or their pregame wear. They don't have anything that's betting related. But yeah, they have found problems in England. So I guess there's problems elsewhere. So, anyways,
you're a billionaire, Norm. Okay, you're a billionaire, right? Would you want front of the shirt advertising from a gambling company, or would you take, for example, milk?
Well, there's a dollars and cents issue to be addressed as well. Depends, how much revenue do you need? Where else can you get the revenue from? Can you get it from elsewhere? And how crucial is it to your financial survival? There's a lot of questions that have to be answered before you can give an answer to that question. It's not just if you're a billionaire. If you're a billionaire, you can get to be a billionaire by losing money. So you got to know how you're going to make your money if you're investing in professional sports. And you got to decide, there's a moral issue. Well, am I willing to have gambling even if, not saying definitely, but even if it creates gambling problems? And, as you're alluding to, there's an increase. I don't know which statistic or which information where you're getting that from, Joe, but I know in England, from speaking to people, there have been concerns expressed about gambling or getting kids into gambling through, viewing shirt sponsors of their favorite teams being gambling related entrepreneurships. So there is a concern there, and it should be dealt with and not swept under the carpet. And like I say, it's a legal business, and as long as it's legal, then they can advertise and people can do business with them. But there's lots of angles that have to be looked at. Let's put it that way.
All right, so that's and can you believe 10 years ago, or when you're at your prime with the Fan 590, did we even think of, let's talk about gambling and put them on jerseys and everything like that? That's the evolution of time, how to make money, because we mentioned, I just mentioned Vlad Guerrero, $600 million. Well, how are they paying for his contract is to get these guys who, gambling and extra source of income and everything like that. So, and the National Football League, yes, we all like football, but National Football League is probably one of the most popular leagues because you could gamble on it. Yeah, how many times, they're favored by 2.5, by 3 points, and I like this, I like that, and like they in the NFL, I'm sure they, people waste or throw hundreds of millions of dollars every week on gambling.
Yeah, well, the NFL, all the leagues now are, like I say, connected with gambling in terms of sponsorships and mentions in the show, and this program is brought to you by Bet ba 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 ba, or some of the casinos that are known to have sporting connections. But it seems like, I'm just talking generally, it seems like a lot of them do. That's just that's the trend now. And like I say, you can't watch a game in any sport now without seeing some kind of gambling related promotion. So that's the way it's gone. And, the question is, it seems to be good for the game financially, obviously, because they rely on it so heavily. But it should be explored. It's worth exploring. The societal impact, it shouldn't be ignored. And is there enough? And I know the arguments. People say, well, people can drink. I mentioned it before. People can drink alcohol, or in some places smoke marijuana. It's a question of, are you going to do it responsibly and not cause problems for yourself or, God forbid, for other people? In terms of accidents and tragedies happening. So, same thing with gambling. It's an issue of people exercising their self-control and being disciplined with how much they spend and not hurting themselves or their loved ones in terms of their spending. So that's something that needs to be looked at in terms of the net impact of gambling advertisements. And
All right, Norm, we have a question here. I want to quickly get to the question before we join by our guest. This is an interesting question. Ralph Stenson wants to know, I listened to you on the Fan 590 for many years. He moved in 1948 to Oshawa, and you got him through rough nights. And he says, back, let's say 1970, what was your favorite sport? And now 2025, is it still the same or is it different?
Well, 1970 was, I was equally split between hockey and football. I grew up as a young fan of the Maple Leafs, of course. I guess hockey would have been my favorite, followed.
And you say football, is that CFL or NFL? Because in 1970, CFL was up there.
Yeah, no, the CFL, I followed the Argonauts. I did follow the NFL as well. I followed both leagues. I've always followed both leagues. So, you couldn't see as many games on TV. You'd see, 1 or 2 games a week of the NFL, that is, on a Sunday. And then in terms of the CFL, you can see all the Canadian games. And I was a young Argos fan. And the Argos had some good teams around 1970. One included quarterback Joe Theismann, who went on to win a Super Bowl with the Washington. Then they were known as the Redskins. Of course, now they're the Washington Commanders. But yeah, so hockey was my first favorite. I was a huge Leafs fan as a kid. And back in 1970, I'd say now I put footy a little bit ahead of hockey. I watch all sports, at least I try to, hockey, baseball, football, basketball, professional, amateur, meaning, college or the professional ranks as well. So I watch as many different sports as I can. But I'd say footy, or if you prefer here in North America, soccer, I'd rank a little bit ahead in terms of my devotion to watching what I have time for. But it's pretty close, let's put it that way.
He's very humble because the answer is 1970, 80. It was the Maple Leafs. He was also a Doug Laurie Sports there and everything like that. Now, you did not mention it. I'm going to mention because you're scared. You're a big wrestling fan. All right. Norm Rumack calls me up 2:00 in the morning. Did you see what The Rock did? Did you see Cody Rhodes? He's a big wrestling fan. Norm, come on, come out of the closet and say you're excited for WrestleMania 41. But I digress. We're joined by the Hall of Fame coach. I'm going to say he's a Hall of Famer. Carmen Asako here. Carmen is going to talk about how Canada beat America. And Carmen, let me ask you this right now. America, let's say they were favored. They were favored to win this tournament and all that. Not only did they lose the third place match up against Canada, where and last Thursday you mentioned, or Friday you mentioned this, the refereeing kind of questionable. Canada gets dumped in the box. They don't get a penalty call, but they throw out the marsh there. Okay, so take us through the tournament and take us through that matchup, the third and first place game. Let's start off with the third place game, Canada versus the U.S.
Yeah, I mean, good game. I just, right now at this point, no one can argue that Canada's a better team. Canada's a better team. And as many as the so-called game breakers that the U.S. has, and Pulisic and Weah and Musa and Gio Reyna, who acts like a spoiled brat 9 times out of 10. And I know his dad from playing against him, and he was one of the best players I've ever seen played against. But regardless, I digress. Yeah, Canada's a better team. I mean, there's missing something. They went with a proper target in a Guiyang, the target for Charlotte, and it still didn't work out. Although he scored a goal, Dane probably wishes he had that back, kind of through his legs. But the action itself, good on Nico, who had a good game. Former York University player. Our midfielder kind of been playing in the midfield in Croatia for Gennaro Gattuso, all that stuff. But he had a solid game against, and then in the second half handled himself quite well against Weah, who's, like we said, is a game breaker, a game changer. But it's been too many times of the same old. A lot of smoke and without production. And you look at Pulisic, and you look at the way they tout their own horns, or sometimes they go about their business without the humility they should. Not sometimes, a lot of the times. And a humble team that goes to work, like Alistair Johnson and Jonathan David and Kone and Bombito, just those blue collar workers that have a little bit of special. And remember, they didn't start Eustachio, and they lost Davies 15 minutes into the game. So this is a good, solid team. It's really got depth. It's got continuity. So it's really important. And they started, I think, 4 or 5 different players from the first game against Mexico. So you know what? And well deserved against the U.S. And Jonathan David took the goal fantastically. And with another referee, that might have been a red card and a PK. And Canada kind of going through a little bit easier than they did. But I don't think that they provided many difficulties. Even the big save that Dane did make off the second phase of a restart, I thought he should have been off his line earlier, and he should have handled it earlier. But I don't think they troubled us. I don't think they broke us down. I don't think there was anything special about the U.S. So I think Pochettino, who spent most of his time shaking his head during the game, needs to have a rethink and a relook of who they are. And maybe they have to go back to that counterattack team, transitional team.
All right. Hopefully we get him back there. Norm, anything you want to add till we get Carmen back?
No, I'll just digress for a minute. You were mentioning the MLS coach, Laurent Courtois, I believe his name is, who got dismissed. Seems that he worked pretty well last year under adverse circumstances, not a whole lot of budget for him. And he did some good things. I wonder, Joe, you watch more MLS than I do. You watch a lot of MLS. Didn't they? I know they're off to a slow start, but didn't they pull the trigger, figuratively speaking, a little bit quickly on Courtois in Montreal? Or Carmen, maybe you want to address that too.
Yeah, well, give it to Karma. He's talking about how Montreal dismissed the coach today. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts is I think that it was in the making last year as well, but they made a run in the end. Made the playoffs on the last day, I believe, or So he did a decent job with that group, but I think this year they've got 1 point. The reality is I don't know if he's the problem. I don't think he's the problem. I think maybe looking to what Montreal is, looking to Canadian soccer in general right now, that could be in lie the issue where Vancouver's looking to sell. There's grumblings that Joey Saputo, is not happy with the stadium contract, wants a little more flexibility, it wants a little more help from the community in the city, which if you look around the MLS, it's probably they get a lot more support. The teams get a lot more support from the governments in the city. And I think that's what they're looking at right now. But I will say that the Montreal CF Montreal fan base is fantastic. The fan base and the way they do things and the way they get back their team is still fantastic. And in Vancouver wavers, Toronto FC never wavers. Toronto FC, that you're going to get your group, your 20,000 since they've been there since 2007, and they're going to continue being there. Montreal the same. Vancouver wavers a little bit in their passionate following of the Whitecaps, but that this could be the sacking of Courtois could be a circumstance of bigger picture problems, and not problems. Not that Joey's having problems running the team. Obviously, he's having a lot of success with his Bologna team. I think it's just support. I think it's getting tired of giving a lot and receiving a little, whether it's from the government or the community or whether it's stadium based. All those things. I mean, let's be honest. Saputo's not only in soccer, but in Montreal in general and Quebec in general is probably their most they're if you look at gross national product, they're probably the reason a lot of companies, a lot of people are still working. So I mean, I think that needs to be realized at some point, and there needs to be negotiations for CF Montreal to kind of have a better relationship, both fiscally and infrastructure wise for the community of Quebec.
Norm, do you know what CF Montreal needs? What type of coach CF Montreal needs? We have him here on the air. He's dressed up as a York, and that's his team, York University men and ladies. First of all, how many coaches coach men and ladies at the same time? So anybody in the world, not only MLS, Chelsea could use this guy. Why isn't Carmen Asaco's name not being touted as coach in MLS, as coach in Serie A? You would like to go back to Italy. Come on, Carm. You like to go back to Italy. Norm would like to eat Italian food. Come on. All right? Anybody who's
Joe,
watching.
We've got bigger fish to fry.
No. I'm going to say
fry. We're going to
say
have
this.
but the one name that should be definitely considered for the Montreal job, and we know he was there before. And it was
who would you hire for that job?
Well, I mean, Mauro Biello should be definitely talked to. I think he's has the experience now, obviously with the national team, with being an MLS coach already. I think that both success and failures have taught him and will teach him, and I think he should definitely be spoken to. And some of the ways he's gone about his business has been very good as well. I think he's just a professional. I think he would do well. Again, I think I think it's going to be tough to leave this national team right now. But I'm 99.9% sure that he would be the right man for the job in Montreal.
I'm going to ask you one question, and if Norm wants to jump in after, he can. All right, for you, if you get a call, what's the number one or two thing? No, seriously, because you're a staple at York University, okay? But if you get a call, what's the number one or two things that you look for in a team, or can you jump in there right away or whatever? Like simply, what's the best job for you?
Me and Norm are old school, okay? In this new reality, it's what can you do for me? But in our old reality, Norm and I will always be of the ilk of what can we do for you. So that would be my where do I fit in the whole concept? How can I work extremely hard to get you to that next level? I think that's the mentality. And if the administrators they support, that's the most important thing. And in doing so, I think that we can get the best out of the players, and not whine about what we don't have, but be very happy of what we have and maximize their abilities in what we have rather than what we don't have.
All right. So We talked about the third place match, Canada beating the U.S., but we got to talk about the championship match, Mexico Panama. Good game, 1-1 in the 92nd minute, and then they call a penalty. All right, and then he takes a penalty, and he takes 5 seconds before running up or whatever. And you know what I'm talking about. They do it. Everybody does it there. But come on. Until you see the goalie move, then he puts in the other side. Is that fair? Or looking at it as a coach, what do you think?
I mean, again, unfortunately, there's the subjectivity of every objective preposition that has to be translated in the best way possible. In saying that, as ambiguous as I was, I think the rules are very ambiguous. I mean, the rule itself says they can't come to a full stop. What does the full stop mean in the world of physics or the worlds of motor dynamics? Do you ever stop moving? So all this stuff becomes the subjective reality of all the officials. So in the official's mind, he didn't come to a complete stop, whatever he did wasn't within the legal realms. And again, that's always subject to interpretation. So arbitration is exactly that. There's that the ability to become the best arbitrator or the best translator of the rules that exist. So it is what it is. To be fair, Mexico. Let's talk about Mexico itself and how they've transitioned, how they've understood that they're not going to salsa all the way through CONCACAF these days, and they've got to be a more efficient team. And against Canada, kudos to them. Yes, there was a penalty that wasn't given, and it would have been 1-1 and would have changed the game. But they were very efficient defensively. They didn't have the ball more than Canada, which was something that probably was planned, something that is unheard of 5 years ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So all those things, I think, reflects the Mexican hierarchy, not other than like away from what the U.S. has done. They've become humble in their approach to games. Sometimes they've become humble in saying, okay, we understand that we've got to get numbers behind the ball. We can be a transition team. We're not going to salsa and tiki-taka through teams anymore. We have to skip lines and play direct. We have to win second balls. And they did exactly that against Canada. And I thought they were very efficient. And I think the same against Panama. They gave up opportunities. I think they weren't as efficient as they were against the Canadians. And I think they took moments for granted against Panama. But that's one thing I will say that the Mexicans did not do in this tournament and to win the Nations League was take moments off. And they realized that they can't afford to do that anymore. And that's kudos to Aguirre and what he's done and how he's transitioned as a manager and as he made the Mexican Federation have a different perspective on what CONCACAF is now and what it's going to take for the Mexican team to win in CONCACAF. And they won, and it was an efficient. It was they did the work defensively and created opportunities from defending, good defending.
And this Nation Leagues tournament was a great for Mexico, for Canada, for the United States, the three hosts of the World Cup next year. All right, so that was very great to see. But I gotta say this, and we always complain about in the National Hockey League about the refereeing. The refereeing better be way better in the World Cup. Do you agree, Carm?
Yeah, I think all these refs that did the Nations Leagues, I think they're getting evaluated. And there's not many CONCACAF referees other than the three countries that we just alluded to that are going to be even considered for the World Cup. There's some referees in MLS that are very, very good. And I think they take that into the international game as well. But I still think that the level of refereeing in Europe is still the epitome of what we strive for. And again, the leagues are different. what a foul is different. All those things in the World Cup become kind of one, and in the international game become kind of one. But a foul in Uruguay or in Honduras is not what a foul is in Holland or Italy. So we have to respect that, but also find a way to be consistent. And I think when we talk about consistency and we talk about what the FIFA wants to see, they're gonna go to the European referee side rather than the South American and the Central American referee. And you'll see a lot. Maybe I think at least one Canadian in the middle, maybe two. You'll see a lot of ARs, Canadians, and a lot of Americans in the middle. Maybe a handful of Mexicans. But I think that the Europeans are going to dominate. As they have in the past. When the most important games come, they'll be the ones officiating them.
All right, Norm, you have any other questions for Carm?
No, I think he addressed it perfectly. For example, the Premier League amongst the 5 top European leagues is probably the roughest. Sometimes it looks a little bit like the National Hockey League, especially the scrums in front of the nets that you see on corners and whatnot. Sometimes it takes 5 minutes for the game officials to settle everybody down just to take a corner because they're so busy pushing and shoving and tugging and whatnot. It does look like almost like an NHL power play in front of the net with a little bit of, they don't have stick work, but they have arm work and leg work. So all kinds of stuff that goes on. So the Premier League is a rougher league than the other European leagues, much more physical. The tackles are harder, sometimes a little bit on the dirty side. You can say that. So yeah, for officials, I would guess you want to have influence from everywhere in terms of countries playing different styles. You want officials who have maybe different styles and different interpretations, so it's not just one perspective. Because like I'll ask Carmen, I mean, how do you agree with what I said about the Premier League in terms of, and especially on corners, there's a lot of jostling in front of the net before the ball is kicked and when it's kicked. And then what's allowed, how much pushing and shoving and tugging, and when does that become a card or a subsequent penalty? So there's some very fine lines there, Carmen.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not just the Prem these days. It's everywhere. It's across all the leagues, and especially in Europe. Those corners and restarts are very much tug. I mean, when you're a coach, you're talking about touch tight defensively, especially on restarts. But yeah, again, it's all through interpretation, and you could probably call 10 fouls. That's sometimes laughable when they go to VAR on those situations when there was a hold, there was a grab, there was about 22 of them. So I mean, again, that's ultimately true, but it's part of the game. And it becomes laughable when they go to VAR. For me, it's laughable when they go to VAR on those situations and they call back a goal or they allow a goal for whatever reasons. I mean, there was a goal called back recently on a goalkeeping situation. I think it was anyway. It was absolutely ridiculous. Oh, the goal for against Toronto FC. Although I'm a fan, you remember that foul on Sean Johnson that wasn't really a foul. It was just. Sean kind of going into him and falling. But again, if you can interpret that as a foul, you can interpret other 23 situations in that 1.5 second span that are fouls. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough as a ref. But and again, for me, it's what's right and what's wrong. For me, what's right and what's wrong. And is it always black and white? No. But what's right is. That was a foul on Cornelius. It should have been a PK. You can interpret that differently. What's right and what's wrong is, what did they called back? or they called a penalty back for Italy, but then called one on a handball that was hard to see. That what's wrong, it's what's right. All these little situations about handballs and situations that are so minute in interpretation, and the rules are so, it's tough. But there's got to be a right and a wrong in that situation. But that's undefinable in some situations. And yeah, it's tough. It's tough, Norm.
All right, so before we close it out here, let's talk about the other leagues. You mentioned European, ho-hum, big names, Spain, Portugal, England, and all that. Let's do a summation of all these other matchups. What did you think, Carm?
Oh, brilliant. I mean, you have Yamal scoring another incredible goal as he does to go up, and then the Netherlands tying it in on another PK, the infamous PKs. And then they go to PKs and they win it, which, great effort by the Dutch, and the Spanish did deserve it. And then you look at the Italian game where they're down 3-0 and they play an incredibly horrible first half, and they come back 3-3 and had a chance to win it in the end. That would have put them into overtime. Then you see Portugal and Denmark, Portugal coming back and winning and going to overtime and scoring, another 4 goals. Just great stuff. I love this Nations League because there's something at stake. I think that it's important to play for something, and I think that it raises the level of competition. And I don't know, Norm, can you go back and think what they did before this Nations League and those friendlies, or it was just a walk in the park?
No, yeah, that's a good point. I remember. I mean, my earliest remembrances of footy was going with, quite well, my brother David. We went to a friendly at Varsity Stadium back then. That's where, for those you're not familiar with the name Varsity, it's where the University of Toronto Blues.
Maybe you watched me play in a couple of friendlies there. We played Lazio.
No, we watched Pelé. That's all we watched.
Yeah, well.
I actually did see a game. I'm pretty sure it was 1970 where it was Pelé. And it might have been Italy and Brazil, but the thing I remember most more than the game was the cussing between the sets of fans who were sitting behind me. One guy yelling out, I'll leave out the word, what the blank do you know about Pele?
So Carm, you mentioned
Anyway,
seeing you play and all that. For people who on 12-ounce sports who don't know, tell them what position you played and who inspired you to get in. In 1970 and all that. We talked about hockey.
I was born in 70, so don't.
Yeah, well, doesn't matter. 70. You look like you're born in 1940, even older.
Thank you very little. But no, there's so much culture and history in our soccer culture here. Toronto Italia days, and all kinds of NSL days when the stadiums were packed.
Yeah.
And there was always massive friendlies, whether we played Inter Milan or Lazio, in front of 20,000 people at Varsity Stadium. This was a great soccer place, great soccer city. And like before me, there was Stanley Matthews and some incredible players that played for Toronto City. Just incredible. Eusebio playing here for Metros Croatia and ASL. And obviously the greats that lived that Norm knows for sure that they're still here. The Robert Yarushis of the world and the Carmen Marcantonios of the world, the Bruno Pilas, and some incredible players played here. And the thing about the NSL when I was playing for Toronto Tel that I remembered the best was the foreigners were real, like big time foreigners. They came from the Bundesliga. They came from top divisions in Europe. Some would stay for the summer and go back to their it was a little bit different rules, but the quality and I wish there's so many stories, and they could cover forever and ever. And Toronto Italia playing against Benfica and Celtic, players after players, Diego Maradona playing at Birchmount Stadium, just stories after stories about what's happened in this community. And and it's a great soccer history. And to be fair, I think the fans at Toronto FC, the fans are continuing that history, and they're passionate people. And since 2007, they should be appreciated for the passion and the sacrifice they put into this club.
All right. That will do it for Fired Up Live. A couple of announcements here. First of all, we are great. I know wrestling a little bit today, and Norm and Carmen know this. Today is Mark Calloway. Do you know who he is, Norm? It's the Undertaker 60th birthday today. 60 years old of the Undertaker today. Also, hopefully we're going to have Digit Murphy do a special show tomorrow here on 12 Ounce Sports. And Ernest the Cat Miller has given us the chance to air his show on 12 Ounce Sports. That will begin Wednesday. Thursday we'll be back here with Fired Up Live and discussing Major League Baseball as the season opens up. And if Carm has nothing to do, and after he takes me to Nino D'Aversa, all right, we'll go back here. Yeah, see, and look, Norm knows Nino D'Aversa too, okay? Norm wants to go there, but I'm telling you right now, if you take Norm, you're going to spend $200. If you take me, you'll probably spend $2,000. All right, so there you go. But hopefully we're joined by John Freeman Nelson, who actually texted me. He is practicing the Canadian national anthem because Friday we had a bet. If Canada beats USA, John will be back here this Friday, and sing the Canadian national anthem. But he did ask.
We can't let him off the hook, Joe.
But he did ask. He did ask. He needs Norm to teach him the words of the Canadian national anthem.
Yeah,
so,
right.
Norm, are you going
to? He has to officially say that the U.S. is the 11th Canadian province.
Well, we got 10 and 2 territories, so maybe 13 or whatever. But wow. Yes. And you know what? On Friday, tune in here because I'm going to charge John Freeman Nelson 25% tariff on being a loser. His country has lost since they put the new coach in. Dare I say, Canada right now is better at footy and soccer than America. Do you agree, Carm?
No, absolutely. I mean, they beat them not only beat them, we're better than them the last 2 times playing against them. That hasn't happened since probably the 80s. And it's player for player, just whether it's mentality, character, technical ability, tactical ability, we're better. We're better. And Jonathan David and Alfonso Davies and Tajon Buchanan was a beast yesterday. And my boy, good old Nico Sugar comes in for Alfonso Davies. Good old York University kid, puts in a standout performance with and without the ball. Ali and Dane and
but you don't forget one of the guys that I'm going to tell you he's going to be a star. Bombito is going to be a star coming up in the World Cup. All right. So Norm, tell everybody how to get a hold of you, and nobody bother Karim. He's preparing my Nino D'Aversa.
Yeah, best place to get hold of me is right here on Fired Up on the 12 Ounce Network, where I co-host with Mr. Pasek, our wonderful leader, and the man who got us here to 12 Ounce from the Fired Up Network. So I'm with Joe Monday. We're here from 12 until 1 with great guests like Carmen and others as well. And we're also here on Thursday, a bit of a shorter show, but nonetheless with great guests and hot topics of discussion that you can relate to, whether you're in the United States or Canada, or even if you're watching overseas somewhere. As you can tell, we do a lot of footy here on this network and on this show. So we're well versed in all the major sports, and we thank you for joining us, and great to be on with Carm and of course with my good buddy for a long time, Joe.
All right, and of course, Carm will be on hopefully Friday for more of the soccer show. And I have to say this and quickly give me your thoughts on George Foreman passing away this week. First, Carm, what are your thoughts?
A legend not only in the ring, but his smile, his enthusiasm. He was always that one, personality you'd always stop and listen to. And if he was around in person, it's just one of those guys you'd want to give a hug to. So hopefully God's hugging him now.
All right, and go make me some steak on the Foreman barbecue grill there. Norm, go ahead.
Yeah, you mentioned the Foreman Grill. Remarkable as a businessman. You think of, his gut instinct or his insights. George Foreman, may he rest in peace, uh, sold over 100. Think about this, fellas. Think about sales of anything. Over 100 million George Foreman grills were sold, and then he eventually sold it to someone who bought the rights to it. I mean, think of the genius, the absolute genius. 100 million of that product sold worldwide. On top of his, by the way, 76 wins and only 5 losses as a professional fighter, and probably best remembered, even though he lost to Muhammad Ali, the Rumble in the Jungle in 1974. One of the most talked about, one of the most watched fights of all time. And smart man, classy man, all-time great fighter. And, like I say, may he rest in peace. Died, we lost him at too young of an age, which happens with fighters sometimes, as we saw with Muhammad Ali. But one of the classic names of all time in professional sports and professional boxing for sure, George Foreman.
I agree. And you've been watching Fired Up Live here on 12 Ounce Sports Network. Stay tuned for more great programming. Thanks a lot, Norm and Carm.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
You are watching the flagship show on the Fired